You ever come home after a long day dreaming of a quiet evening and instead find three shiny SUVs parked across your private driveway like someone decided to buy your land while you were gone? Yeah, that happened to me. And by the time it was over, those same people learned that trespassing can cost you a whole lot more than gas money. I live out on a 4,800-acre ranch in Montana, miles of pines, creeks, and dirt roads. The air smells clean, the stars look close enough to touch, and peace is about the only luxury I've got out here. I inherited the land from my parents, spent months fixing fences, marking boundaries, hanging clear, no trespassing signs, and even locking the gate with a fresh chain. I love solitude, but I also love order. Out here, boundaries mean everything. That morning, I drove into town for supplies. Nothing big, maybe 4 hours round trip. When I came back, I saw them. 3 big SUVs, white, black, and silver, parked sideways right across my private gravel road. Not just close to it, across it. They blocked the only road that led home. The kind of road that's barely wide enough for one vehicle with drainage ditches on both sides. There was no way around. At first I thought maybe someone broke down or got lost. I waited, called out. Nothing. No one in sight. Just those fancy cars sitting there like smug little walls. I climbed up on the hood of my truck, scanning the horizon. Not a soul. And that's when it hit me. These people had to have driven miles past my locked gate, crossed onto my private property, and parked like it was a Walmart lot. I could have dragged them out right then. Lord knows I was tempted. I've got a truck big enough to pull a barn. But something told me to play it smart. So I called the sheriff's office. The deputy who covers my side of the county, Harris, showed up in less than 20 minutes. He took one look, whistled, and said, "Yeah, that's illegal as hell." I laughed, told him I didn't want anyone accusing me of damaging their precious vehicles. He shrugged. "Then let's do this right." We took photos, hooked up some chains, and gently, well, as gently as you can, with 2 tons of steel, dragged each SUV just far enough off the road for me to pass. I might have kicked up a little gravel, maybe scratched a tire, but hey, they were trespassing. I figured that'd be the end of it. They'd come back, see their cars moved, feel a little shame, maybe think twice next time. But the next morning, they were still there. Same thing the morning after. That's when a little voice in my head said, "These people didn't just park here, they camped here." Somewhere out there on my land, they were probably roasting marshmallows and congratulating themselves for discovering nature, my nature. That's when I stopped being polite. I grabbed my jack and a set of wooden cribbing blocks, drove down to the SUVs, and one by one lifted each vehicle just high enough that the wheels were hovering an inch above the dirt. No damage, no slashing tires, nothing illegal. Just physics. You want to camp on my property? Fine. Enjoy your floating vehicles. A few days passed. Then one afternoon I saw them walking up the road from the woods, 8 of them sunburned, dusty, reeking of bug spray and entitlement. The kind of people who wear $300 hiking boots and think it makes them pioneers. One guy starts yelling before he's even close. "Who messed with our cars?" Another chimes in, waving his arms like an angry flamingo. "You had no right." I stepped off my porch, calm as a Sunday sermon. "Afternoon," I said. "You folks the proud owners of those 3 SUVs. They puffed up thinking they'd caught me red-handed. "Yeah, and you're in big trouble." I pointed down the road. "So just to be clear, you drove past a locked gate marked private property, crossed a mile of road you don't own, blocked. My only way home vanished for nearly a week, and now you're mad at me." That's when one woman stepped forward. Blonde bob haircut, designer backpack, sunglasses perched on her head like a crown. She was the ringleader, the Karen. "This is public land," she said, loud and confident. "You don't own nature." I raised an eyebrow. "Lady, I own every square foot you're standing on." She didn't like that. "You can't keep us from camping here. We have a right to be outside." I laughed. "Sure. Outside your own property." That did it. They started shouting, accusing me of harassment, threatening to call the cops. I held up my phone. "Go ahead. Want me to dial for you?" Turns out their phones were dead. No signal out here. I smiled, scrolled to Deputy Harris's number, and called him again. When he arrived, the look on his face was priceless. "Oh, these guys." he said, like it wasn't his first time dealing with their kind. He took statements, listened to excuses, then turned to me. "You want to trespass them officially?" "Absolutely," I said, "and while we're at it, I'd like to file for road damage and storage fees." That caught them off guard. One guy barked, "You can't charge us for parking." "Sure I can," I said. "You blocked access to my home. You owe me for the trouble." Harris took down their names, license plates, and registrations. A tow truck showed up a few hours later, charged them $500 per car to get their SUVs back on the ground and moved to the public road. I stood by sipping coffee, watching their faces twist between disbelief and fury. They packed up and left without another word, and I thought that was it. End of story. But a month later, I got a letter in the mail from Small Claims Court. They were suing me. I sat there at my kitchen table reading the words emotional distress and illegal detention of property, and I swear I laughed so hard I nearly choked on my coffee. But when the laughter died, something else crept in doubt. I stared out the window that night thinking maybe I did go too far. Maybe I should have waited a little longer before moving their cars. Maybe I'd just made things worse. I didn't want to be that guy, angry, territorial, alone on a ranch with nothing but pride for company. For a second I wondered if I was the villain in someone else's story. But then I looked out at my land, the fences, the road I paid to maintain, the no trespassing signs I'd hung with my own hands. And that doubt disappeared. I wasn't wrong for standing my ground. I was tired of people thinking rural means lawless. So I hired a lawyer, Hank Miller, old school, sharp as a tack. I handed him the court papers, and he laughed so hard he nearly fell out of his chair. "Jake," he said, wiping his eyes, "we're not just defending, we're countersuing." For what I asked. Everything, he grinned. Trespassing, road damage, illegal parking, emotional distress. Let's see how they like that. When the court date came, I showed up in jeans and boots. They came dressed like they were going to brunch. The blonde Karen wore pearls. Her lawyer opened by calling me a rural extremist who took the law into his own hands. I almost smiled. Then Hank stood up calm and steady. "Your Honor, my client called law enforcement immediately. He followed every regulation. He never damaged a vehicle, never used force, and only acted to protect his legally owned property." Then he laid out photos, survey maps, police reports, and the tow receipts. The courtroom was quiet enough to hear the clock tick. The judge, an older man with glasses perched low on his nose, flipped through the papers, sighed, and looked straight at them. "You folks," he said slowly, "are lucky he didn't have you towed on the first day. You're not just wrong, you're embarrassingly wrong." Karen's face went red. Her lawyer tried to object, but the judge waved him off. The final ruling was swift. They owed me for resurfacing the road, the towing fees, my legal costs, and a punitive fine for sheer stupidity, as the judge put it. When the hammer came down, I felt the tightness in my chest finally loosen. Justice real and solid. They threatened to appeal. Of course they did, but Hank leaned over to their lawyer and whispered, "Go ahead. It'll take 3 years, and you'll pay both sides legal fees." They dropped it faster than a cheap lawn chair in a windstorm. It took almost a year to get every cent, but eventually I did. And no, I didn't spend it on revenge. I used it to throw our annual barbecue for the volunteer firefighter, sheriff's department, and tow truck crews, the people who keep this place running when no one's watching. Harris came, of course. He raised a beer and said, "To Jake Peterson, protector of private property and unintentional babysitter of Karens." We laughed till sunset. Standing there watching the smoke from the grill curl up into the mountains, I thought about everything that happened. Some people said I overreacted, that I should have let it slide, that maybe I was too territorial. But here's the truth. If you don't draw the line, someone else will move it for you. Respect isn't about fences or signs. It's about knowing where your rights end and where someone else's begin.